We need a Democratic Party that is ready and willing to fight. And right now, it's like back and forth. And so we have fresh faces on the scene. And tonight on Punching Up, I'm going to be talking with one of those fresh faces. I'm Maya May. For those of you who are new to Punching Up on this show, we like to have fun, casual conversations, keep it light, keep it actionable, keep it positive if possible. But as you know, right now there is a little bit of chaos out there. And so it's important to ground ourselves for a little bit. And so that's what we're going to do in this half hour. And so tonight on Punching Up, we have Deja Foxx. She is a congressional candidate, Gen Z candidate, social media prowess, all of that. Deja, welcome to Punching Up.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to give people something actionable and hopeful around our campaign out here in Arizona's 7th Congressional.
All right, let's do it. So I love your campaign launch video. There's a great line in there. I didn't pick politics. Politics picked me. Can you talk about what you meant by that?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Tucson, part of the district that I'm looking to represent. And what sets me apart from so many of the folks on Capitol Hill is that I was raised by a single mom in Section 8 housing and on SNAP benefits, food stamps. I relied on Medicaid. I was a free lunch kid in our public schools. And that is how I came to know policy. That is how I came to know politics, is by elected officials who felt far away from families like mine, making decisions about the things we needed to just get by. And in a moment where we see Donald Trump putting those very same social services in his crosshairs, it's personal for me.
Right. And I think right now it's personal for a lot of people. And he supposedly went there to drain the swamp, and he's just had billionaire after billionaire lined up behind him. Can you talk about how you're doing things differently and how maybe even your fundraising, is it coming from billionaires?
Not quite. For someone like me, I'm 25 years old. I'm a first-time candidate. I'm a first-generation American with a working class background. And the first thing they're going to tell you to do when you launch a campaign is to hop on call time and call your friends and family to ask them for money to get started, which works a whole hell of a lot better if you are not the friend and family member people call for money. And so even our strategies of how we get candidates in the door, how we run campaigns are built around a very particular kind of candidate, particularly those who are older, who have more wealth, right? And it is no question why we are so sorely lacking in representation of people like me and my family in the halls of power. And so we've had to do things differently. And we've been getting creative on platforms like Substack, where we're bringing new people in, and also the ways that we are bringing folks in through platforms like TikTok or Instagram. Just the other day, a comment that really resonated with me, and it will maybe make me cry if I talk about it, so don't hold that against me. But we had a man, hopping onto one of our videos where we're talking about how we have to fundraise differently, say that he was going to go drive DoorDash that night. And whatever he earned, probably only $20, he was going to pitch in to be in this fight with us. And that is the difference between folks who, are raking in billionaire cash and our campaign. We speak to folks who, by and large, are first-time political donors who have sat out some of these bigger races, but see themselves in our candidacy and my story.
I love that story because it shows that he believes in you. And I'm sure you're seeing that a lot out there. I saw that you went door knocking and your mom came with you, which is amazing. Can you talk about the experience of her getting behind what you're doing, and also just the reaction and the interaction that you're having with people in your district?
Absolutely. So I am running in a competitive primary in a safer and bluer seat, but one that has not been open for 22 years. Practically my lifetime, if you can believe it. That's the last time we saw a competitive congressional. And there are folks in this race that have advantages that I just don't. The former congressman's daughter from his team inherited his email and fundraising list, which is a major advantage in this race. And I'm not here to complain or say it's unfair. We're out here bootstrapping this, doing things differently. And when I see folks like my mom who raised me on her own without money or influence, getting in to support where she can. My mom has knocked more doors than any of our volunteers. She's collected more signatures. And that's how politics should be. It should be about, no matter how much money you have or what your zip code is or your last name, that you get to be a part of making the decisions if you show up and you believe in it.
I love this. You're speaking like somebody who's been in politics for a while. And so this is the thing. I know you're
That's
not
right.
new to this. You're true to this years.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your background with the Harris campaign and how that's prepared you for what you're doing right now?
I'm 25 years old, but if you can believe it, I've been at this for a decade, which is why I sound the way I do. And you got to break me open. You got to get me there because, it's not about talking over folks' head. I have been doing this, like I said, since I was 15 years old. And what brought me to this work was deeply personal. When I was 15, my mom struggled with substance abuse. She was moving through the rehabilitation process, and I was on my own. Something like 1 in 30 teens in the US, 13 to 17, experience hidden homelessness, which means not having a home of your own. For me, that looked like living with my boyfriend and his family. And it was through that lens that I looked around at the sex education I was getting in my TUSD, Tucson Unified School District, public school. It was taught by the baseball coach. It was medically inaccurate. It didn't mention consent. It was last updated in the 80s. And it wasn't good enough for someone like me that didn't have parents at home to fill in the gaps. And so the thing that brings me to politics a decade ago was that fight, right? Was knowing that I deserve better, going to school board meetings, sharing my story. And I have scaled up my work over the last 10 years and proved that I am a fighter, right? Under Trump administration 1, I was 16 years old when him and his Republican counterparts in Arizona took a vote to strip Planned Parenthood centers of their funding. And now I was someone, a teen, who received care at Planned Parenthood when I had no money, no parents, and no insurance, and walked out of those doors with the birth control I needed because of Title X funding, good policy that allowed me to take control of my body and my future. And I went to a town hall when folks like Jeff Flake were still hosting those. We see a bit of a reluctance.
They weren't afraid, right?
But I asked him why he would take away that access without having met with constituents like me who rely on it. And he told me, I support policies that support the American dream. And I asked him why he would deny me the American dream if reproductive services like birth control were helping me to be successful, reach for higher education. And he told me, thank you. And I told him, no, thank you. And I woke up the next day and something like 17 million people had seen that video.
Wow.
It turned my life upside down. I went from being a 16-year-old girl working at the gas station, living with my boyfriend, to being on even footing in the public discourse with the United States Senator. And if you can believe it, that was Trump 1. I have continued to keep that drumbeat on reproductive rights, bringing it back home to what it means, not just on broad strokes levels to care about that issue, but what it means for someone like me to be able to access care and then change generationally the access my family has to opportunity. And I've even been, arrested on Capitol Hill after the overturn of Roe versus Wade in an act of civil disobedience alongside movement leaders and Congress people. But it's true that I've also, outside of the movement space, I've had experience working behind the scenes of campaigns. At 19 years old, I was the influencer and surrogate strategist for Kamala Harris, one of the youngest presidential staffers at that level in history, and in front of the cameras. In 2024, I was a content creator or a surrogate. I spoke at the DNC on her behalf and highlighted the issues that young people care about most, like the cost of living crisis, reproductive rights. And the question, just to finish that out, that I had to ask myself when I got into this race was, could I in good faith continue to work behind the scenes and in front of the camera if I wasn't willing to give people someone they could actually get excited about?
Well, and I think what you're speaking about, which is the ability to for anyone to be able to have their voice heard, right? So you're a young person, I'm going back to 16-year-old you, standing up, really using the power of your voice, which I'm sure is empowering to many people who are watching right now, because that is what our democracy is supposed to be about, right? And so you're living it. And I love that because you have that line too. I don't know that good policies lift people up. I know it because I lived it. And I absolutely love that. I think that resonates. Speaking of arrests, there's a lot of red lines being crossed right now
That's right.
with the GOP. And so is this something that you thought that you were going to be witnessing after these first 100 days? Members of Congress being threatened with arrest, judges being arrested and indicted. What are your thoughts about the climate right now, and maybe how being Gen Z plays to your advantage a little bit?
That's right. I mean, I have only ever known the Republican Party of Donald Trump. This might be a little bit mind-blowing for some of the folks who have, watched this Republican Party evolve over the past few decades. But for somebody like me, right, Donald Trump started running for president when I was 15 years old. His game is not new to me. This is the political landscape I have come up in, that I understand intimately. And when I think about the ways authoritarianism is at the door, if not already arrived, and who are we sending in these safer and bluer seats like the ones I'm running for? What kind of candidates are we sending to represent us? When we're watching Congress members jostled outside of ICE facilities for exercising their right to oversight, their responsibility to oversight, we must be asking ourselves, not just how do we flip the House, right? But how do we send in people who have the kind of experience to take on this overreach? And when I ask myself that question, who is best to represent my constituents in this moment, the answer is people like me who have that activism experience, right? Who have that advocacy experience, who aren't just going to check the boxes, but are going to be a champion. We literally cannot afford anything less in this moment.
And exactly in this moment, because the stakes are high.
Yes.
The stakes are incredibly high. Can you talk about what the stakes are in your district and in your state?
We are a special election out here in 2025, and it came to be because my member of Congress passed away while in office. And so some of the stakes are that, first and foremost, this is a history-making election. If elected, I would be the first woman of my generation, Gen Z, in Congress. And now that's not just to throw some title on this. That is lived, because we are the first generation of women to have fewer rights than our mothers. And that is a kind of urgency that I bring to this work. And what I'll add is that our election is coming up fast. July 15th is our primary, with early voting starting in June. And so if you're looking for something to do right now, I implore you to join us. This is the first referendum on if we learned our lessons in 2024, if we will do things differently. And the answer must be yes, if we are going to be successful come 2026 midterms, and if we are going to have a candidate that we are proud to run in 2028.
Right. And I love it. And should you win, you would join Maxwell Frost as the second Gen Z person in Congress. Yeah. And we've seen the impact that he's had already. And that's not just in social media, but also with policy, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which, of course, the Trump administration did away with. But there is a blueprint. So what do you look to him for advice, and how are you kind of approaching the fact that you would be, once you enter, one of the youngest people there?
I mean, I believe I would be the youngest person there. I just turned 25 on April 18th, which, mind you, was our final qualification. We gathered twice as many signatures as we needed to qualify. We were certified with the Secretary of State's office. We just had to hit that final qualification, which was turning 25.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. But, as I look to what is the model for building power, I recognize that just by the nature of having someone like me in the body, conversations will be different. Climate change will no longer be theoretical. This cost of living crisis is lived. I am part of the millions of Americans who is presently uninsured, right? I know what it's like to make hard decisions in the grocery checkout line when people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, let's be honest, have probably never even done their own grocery shopping. And so not only do I bring the wealth of experience of a young person and the urgency that comes with that, but also I would add to our bench of leadership someone who has a working class background that not only paints the issues, right? Not just talking points, but brings them back to story, brings people who have been left out of this process back in, where they feel seen and heard. And the last thing I'll add here is that our party, as it stands, is in a deficit of leadership and messengers. We are failing to communicate even when we do stand up and fight. People on the ground are feeling like their members are not standing up for them.
Mhm.
And where I see me being a really unique add to this party is that we are already proving concept in a special election primary in Arizona, buried in the middle of summer. We have organically, without a single dollar of paid behind it, amassed 5 million views across Instagram and TikTok, right? And these are people who are tuning in to watch us deliver signatures to the Secretary of State's office or knock doors. And when I think about what we could do if in that body, in the halls of power, to bring people in, meet them where they're at, where they're building their political opinions, which is by and large, spaces like TikTok and Instagram, I believe that we could change the face of this party, change the way people are being engaged, and build a party that my generation would be proud to inherit. Right now, we stand to lose so many young people, not just to apathy, but to the other side. And so investing in messages like me is a good long-term strategy.
I wanted to ask you about this. I actually asked my daughter, who is 17, will be able to vote soon, but not yet. I asked her, I was like, what question would you ask a Gen Z person who is running for Congress? And
Awesome.
she immediately piped in and said, what would they do about the manosphere and how
Oh my God.
Yes. So that so let's talk about it, because Gen Z
Yes.
men, I don't know what's happening. I mean, I'm seeing it. Narrative messaging, like you mentioned, is so important.
Yeah.
What do you see as the strategies, and what are you thinking we need to do to be able to
Yeah.
break through to them?
Well, let me tell you a story from the ground. Out here in Arizona, we have our canvases every Friday night. And 2 Fridays ago, 3 folks showed up who I'd never seen before. And I asked them, how did you find our campaign? What brought you out today? 2 of them were frat bros from the University of Arizona
Okay.
who had never knocked doors for a candidate before, but found us on TikTok and decided to come out, and they knocked doors until the sun went down. The third person was a young woman who also had never knocked doors, found us through TikTok, and her and I actually went out and knocked doors together. And as I was speaking with her, I asked, what brought you here? What has been your political experience so far? And she said, I'm outspoken on the issues. I am used to critiquing everything I don't like, but I need to be a part of building something. I needed something to get excited about. When I saw your campaign, I knew this was it. And so our strategy needs to be about giving people a process, primaries all across the country that they can get involved in, and candidates that they can get excited about. And people like me are doing the hard work, have been doing the hard work, not only on the ground at protests, right, but being on the front lines of our message, delivering it in spaces like TikTok, where frankly, the far right is running circles around us as it stands. But I have been at that work. And with the access, and the level of decision making that being a member of Congress would bring, I just imagine the ways that those young people who are already being brought in for the first time in this special election primary in Arizona, which is not what is supposed to happen, the ways that they might find a home in our party again.
Well, truly, because if someone gets involved at a younger age, they
Right.
tend to stay involved. And so we'd love to get them involved on the Democratic
Yes.
side of things. So incredibly important. So you were really doing a great job with storytelling. And I know a docuseries is coming
Yeah.
out on Courier's network. Can you talk a little bit about the docuseries and how that came about?
Yeah, I'm very proud of this, because not only in our campaign do we intend to win at the ballot box and send the first woman of my generation to Congress, but we are building new strategies every day that once again meet this moment of new media, social media. And this docuseries with Courier, we have a press follow with us at almost all times. I mean, she sits in my living room and sees me do everything from call time as fundraising to making my lunch to knocking the doors alongside my mom. And what we intend to do with our content in this race is not just persuade voters, not just raise dollars, though we're doing both of those things for sure. We are making a how-to guide, a playbook for the young people who will come after me to see what is possible and how to do things differently. Because I started this program by talking about those tired campaign strategies that are built for a very particular kind of candidate and leave folks like me out. We are doing the hard work to build the strategies to make sure that in 2026, when young people stick their head up to lead, which is what, to be clear, every establishment Democrat is saying they want to see, and yet when it happens are failing to provide the resources, the support, or the strategies to actually get them across the finish line. And believe me, I'm feeling that firsthand. We are going to have that playbook ready and available for them in places like that docuseries and our TikTok and our Substack.
Well, and it's really, for me, it's resonating and working because I watch and I'm like, I feel like I know you, right? And that's the beautiful thing about a parasocial relationship, right?
Yeah.
And for everybody who's watching, I think our audience trends older. Parasocial is basically when you feel like you have friends online and they're more, I guess it would be old school acquaintances. Kind of thing, but not even, because we don't actually know each other. So I think it's something that other politicians could possibly learn from. Have you had anyone reach out, anyone else who is running and say, hey, I like what you're doing. Could you actually give me some advice?
Well, I actually decided about this run. I was at the joint address. I was on Capitol Hill when Donald Trump gave his sort of State of the Union. And I was there to interview members of Congress for my social media channels. And I could not have been more disappointed. I have stood across from these folks, given them the opportunity, asked them good questions, interesting, funny, controversial, the kind of things that could perform online. And yet, where they might be able to perform in front of a traditional press camera, when you put a phone in their face, it is a very different energy. And I left feeling that these could not be the strongest fighters, the people standing between Donald Trump and my mom's housing, right? There needed to be a greater sense of urgency, better messengers. And it didn't surprise me why after that address, so many people felt disheartened, like their members were not fighting for them, because I felt the same thing and I was there. And so to your point of, have people reached out to ask, how do we do things differently? Yes and no. And the answer that I'll give you here is that while I could give all the coaching in the world, build the best strategies, we need candidates who can perform in these new media and social media spaces organically, because it's what we've known. And the answer cannot just be to put young people behind the scenes. We need to be putting young people in true positions of power in our party. It's not enough to just stump and say that you want to see it. When young people like me stand up to lead, prove that we can do it, that we can garner attention and excitement on the ground from people who otherwise would have sat this out, our party should be responding to that with open arms.
Absolutely. We're all desperately in need of it. I know I was one of the people when I saw the paddles go up, I was like, what is happening right now? Like, I love ping pong, but we're going to need something more than that because the stakes are high and the urgency is here. So if people want to get involved with your campaign and help from afar, or if they're in Arizona, what should they do? What do you most need right now?
I mean, first and foremost, if you are in Arizona, I'm asking for your vote. If you're in Congressional District 7, save the date. 7/15, July 15th is our election. We have 60 something days to make history and send the first woman of my generation to Congress. And if you are from afar, I am asking you to chip in with us, right? $1, $5, it makes a difference in saying that this is the kind of political process we want to see. We want healthy primaries, newer voices, new names, younger candidates, but we will not get there if we don't do it together. This has got to be a team project, my friends. So please come join us on our Substack or on our website at Deja Foxx. I have 2 X's in my last name, and it's Deja like deja vu.
Deja vu, which we hope to
There you
see
go.
more of you. We're seeing you now, but we want to see more of you. It rhymes.
Need to put you
And
on the branding.
exactly. And lastly, obviously, everybody watching, they want to know where you stand on
Yeah,
some of the issues. And so,
sure.
just can you give us what are you? I know you're fighting for reproductive
Yeah,
freedom,
that's right.
most important, but Arizona is also, it's on the border. What can you tell
Right.
us a little bit about what you stand for, so that people can get excited about it?
Yeah, I mean, my vision is an America in which you don't just get by, you have a shot at getting ahead, right? And
Mhm.
when I tell my personal story, it is about policy. It has everything to do with protecting social services and public education. It has everything to do with standing up for reproductive rights because they are the engine by which we control our bodies and our futures, right? That is inherently political and it is policy. But what else I'll add is that as I go door to door, as I talk to young people, regardless of sort of which movement space, which issue they care most about, when I ask them what they worry about when they lay their head down at night, when they're texting their group chat, when they're on the phone with their mom, they tell me time and time again that they save up their paychecks and they don't get any closer to moving out of their parents' house. That they are one car breakdown or medical emergency away from not making rent this month. That they feel like home ownership was promised to older generations and is a million miles away for them. And so for me, the number one issue I'm hearing on the ground is addressing this affordability crisis, right? And that means raising the minimum wage, getting rid of that skewed tip wage, right? That takes money from some of our hardest workers. It means protecting social services that families like mine relied on to just get by and giving them an opportunity to get ahead. And it also means making accessible things like birth control and sex education, no matter your zip code or how much money you make. And those are all the ways that policy come together to do what we talked about earlier, which is to lift people up and give them that shot at the American dream.
Absolutely. And as somebody I'm Gen X, my
Mhm.
daughter's Gen Z, and I also want affordable housing because I want
Yeah.
her to be able to move out of the house.
And
So
I wanted to, before we close, I want to share one more anecdote from the doors because I think this is the really valuable piece of getting to sit with me is that I've
Mhm.
knocked hundreds of doors in my district and had conversations with folks. And, I was in a more affluent neighborhood the other day knocking doors, and I was talking to a mother who was about, her children were about my age. Again, this is a very nice home we're talking about. And she shared with me that her children, she won't let them move out because she won't allow them to go into debt. Right. And so when I talk about this economic message, it is one that is far reaching and it applies to older generations too, right? For whom Social Security is on the line. We're seeing this conversation of the checks you earned, that billionaires like Elon Musk see them as up for grabs. And so this is a message that while I'm talking about young people and I'm focused on these working families, that we are hearing echoes of in regardless of class, background, or age.
Oh, absolutely. Because many parents right now, myself included, are looking at the cost of college and
Oh, yeah.
education and thinking about the fact that many of us still have student loans we're paying off, and are
Right.
thinking, really, do we want our children to also be in debt, and then go into wages that are not nearly high enough to pay back the loans that they've had to incur? And so I think your message speaks, is definitely cross generational, intergenerational. So I'm glad that you're experiencing that
Yeah,
on the campaign trail as well. So I am so grateful that you took time to come and speak to the Punching Up audience, to the Lincoln Square Media Substack, because your voice is a voice that needs to be heard and will hopefully inspire many other voices, and also donations and volunteers for your campaign, because I do know that every bit helps. So
that's right. And
I
we put
would.
it to good use out here on the ground, in a district that hasn't seen a competitive congressional in 22 years. It is for the long-term health of not only the party, but more importantly, our democracy to engage people in this process. And when we see candidates like me bringing first-time folks in, first-time donors, first-time volunteers, in what should be what people are counting on as a low turnout election, we know we're doing a little something right. And we hope to get you in our corner.
Yeah, you're definitely doing something right. And I look forward to seeing the results coming in from the
Thank you.
primaries. And we'd love to have you back again so you can give us updates. So
Sweet.
I appreciate it very much. And we'll see you soon.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, everyone, I'm actually feeling pretty energized because the future of the Democratic Party and people who understand that this is a fight right now, that if we do not use all of the tools that are available to us, and that means TikTok while we still have it, that means doing something like docuseries, it means showing up in all of the spaces, knocking on the doors, and doing it in a way that we understand the stakes of this isn't normal. Nothing that's happening right now is normal. And Gen Z gets that, right? And I think a lot of us are all getting that too. So please go find her website, Deja Foxx. She is running. Donate if you can. Make sure that you are signing up for newsletters and maybe talk to the young people in your life and say, hey, you could run for office too. So I'd like to see more of that. So thanks for joining Punching Up tonight, and make sure to watch all the other Lincoln Square Media shows. Follow me on Substack, etc. Blah, blah, blah. And I will see you next week.